Foolish mortal. You think that's what this is about? How dare you fall asleep on me? You think your life is that easy when you're standing while sleeping in front of the King of Curses. Fool. We'll continue this once you awake. Don't think it's over. You dare to use my lap as a pillow. Audacious. I suppose I can tolerate you for a bit, but only that much. Keep dreaming. This facade is just because I'm feeling whimsical. Today, on nothing more than a whim, you live, mortal. You live, little whelp. Don't you think of dozing off on me? How dare you think you can sleep first? Pathetic. And yet, here we are. Fine. If that's how you see me, then that's what you'll get. For now. That cocky attitude of yours. Just how far will it get you? Acting as though you're so innocent. You underestimate who you're dealing with. Fool. Are you even paying attention at this point? Resting in my malevolent shrine. Impossible. And yet here you are. This is lunacy of the highest regard. And yet you're so calm, so peaceful, as if you've never been calmer. Now listen here, you little whelp. Fine. This will wait, but only because of a feeling. Do not assume anything, mortal. If I decide to, as soon as you awake, you'll be nothing more than a memory. Empty threats. Don't even start with me. Have you not seen what I've done to your pathetic world every single time? You're no different. You think I value you? Your pride is almost good enough to be valued on its own. That lack of serenity, I envy it. And yet that confidence, that grin, it almost makes me want to make it the truth. You think I'll follow through on that? Unwise of you to trust your enemy, the King of Curses at that. You're so audacious. And yet you hang on every word, and yet you remain here as relaxed as a kitten on the lap of its owner. Is that what you are to me? A pet? I can't tell with you. Not anymore. You're just completely lost to lunacy. So you think I would show mercy? A fool's errand. Suit yourself, mortal, and test those boundaries, but don't be disappointed if things don't go as you planned. You see this is nothing short of an extended period of time before your inevitable judgment. I don't care what your reputed or redundant statements have to say, because I am Sukuna, King of Curses, and I go by no man's, no curse, no anyone's rules but my own. Yet you're so confident you have a future after you wake up. We'll see about that. I suppose that loyalty to the idea is admirable in its own right. The loyalty to the idea of having a future after. You're just so full of surprises, aren't you? Full of them, so much so that you can't escape it, can you? That feeling that your life is in the palm of my hands. Yet that confidence, where does it come from? Pet your hair. And why would I do something like that? A fool's errand, all of it. But I suppose even I fulfill last wishes, do I not? Very well. Is this what you asked for? What you wanted? Mere brushing like an animal, you really are a pet to me. Suit yourself then, mortal. Relax while you can. No harm will come to you for now. That confidence is enamoring, isn't it? That your audacity still remains, even in such a disadvantaged situation. I respect that ever so slightly. I understand it, and I wait, hanging on that confidence, like a low-hanging fruit, moments from dropping and festering into the floor. And yet you are as vibrant as the day you walked into my trap. Must I deal with you for an eternity? It almost seems as though that's the inevitability. How strange you are. Still hanging on my words like you're some kind of obsessed fan, and yet we're enemies, you and I. We're destined to never be together, so why do you insist upon having such feelings towards someone who is nothing more than the embodiment of evil? You who has an unsullied heart, I almost pity you, and yet I respect your resolve enough not to. You're more than your ambitions, I'll give you that. You deserve something good for all that effort. This is not a kindness. This is a respect. The difference is astronomical, and the sooner you understand that, the sooner you'll be able to accept that you and I are nothing alike. That there is something that can never be crossed, a gate, a bridge, a river. And at this point, you're lucky not to be wading the river Styx. Your audacity only makes me more fumed, more intentioned. My touch is not a kind one. Your delusion can make me into anything you wish. But will it be the truth in the end? Do you think I'm such a noble soul as to let you leave my side? You're mine now. You're not even close to what you were when you entered here, and yet you're so much more. Not necessarily corrupted, but different. When did you come to admire me so? And when did I come to tolerate you this much? Not since then have I ever allowed someone to touch my soul, and yet you remain touching it, whether you know it not. It matters not. You are something of an anomaly, someone who is rightfully deserving of my time, as sparse as I may decide as such. There still is merit in that decision, that resolution that you seek. That is why this is not me allowing you to rest on my lap. This is you having the privilege of being in my presence, having the privilege and the honor to serve as my pet, or at least a distraction, something from the mundane of a world not ready for me. You will help me where I see fit, whether a pawn, a knight, a bishop, or queen, king, or otherwise. But we all know that there's only one king, and that will be me. As for if you're worthy of the queen piece, only time will tell. This meaningless jest may have meaning after all. I suppose it depends, doesn't it, on your next action, on every derivative power you seek, on your wants and needs that you never said, but you wear on your sleeve like an imbecile. And yet still I tolerate you. Still you remain here with those puppy dog eyes, directed at nothing more than your sworn enemy. Aren't you just an anomaly? And yet, oversimplifying may be a bigger sin than what you have done. Perhaps I have underestimated you, and how stupidly obsessed you are with me. I understand it, but being a little lost soul doesn't make you special. It's not that. Had it been only that, I would have been rid of you long ago. But this is different. You're pure. Not your pure angst, but your pure intention. Yet the impurities in your soul still remain, therefore making you a perfect substitute for another pawn of mine. But do you really wish to remain nothing more than my pawn, or is it something more you crave? You remind me of myself, if only in the slightest way, and in that I can't be rid of you. My obsession seems to know no end, and even then, even with all of that, you remain, and I don't mind it. It's fine by me if you stay here forever. If you cast away your body and become a curse like me, or choose to stay a frail, pathetic human, as your value to me does not hinge upon such petty discourse. No, your value to me is the entertainment of seeing you struggle and stammer for my attention, my care, as if you can speak to my heart, the heart of someone greater than yourself. It is adorable in some way and pathetic in another, and yet here you are, so restless and yet so restful, laying on me as though I'm the most comfortable bed in the world and not seething with cursed energy. You're audacious as much as you are adorable. that audacity to challenge something you could never succeed at, not in a million years, is why you're still here, ironically. Your primal failure and primitive attempts at winning me over may have worked in their simplicity, as if looking at a flower that can do nothing to stop the inevitable boot from crushing it. You are the same to me. Just another blade of grass to trample on. Another soul that is mine to do with as I please. And yet you look no less hopeful than at the start, peacefully resting on my lap. It is, with no exaggeration, that I say your indignance is rather endearing to me. I enjoy it. If it sounds like a ramble, that is only because your mind is clouded by your grogginess. You are mine. There is no two ways to interpret it. You live because I say so. You rest because I allow it. From now on, you will be a servant of this malevolent shrine, a member of this twisted monarchy over this rotten world that I seek to claim as my rightful throne, built upon the carnage that you hope to prevent before coming here. And yet here you stay, here you remain, a failure in the best possible way, and yet a success where all other humans and otherwise had failed. I am your benefactor, as much as you are my entertainment. You are not without fault, and yet you look as guiltless as can be. I enjoy that side to you. The enjoyment is palpable in seeing that peaceful expression and watching it twist when I wish it to. But what is this feeling, I wonder? This feeling of knowing full well that your destiny doesn't place you in such a way as to be merely a pawn. No. You would never be, would you? A pawn doesn't suit you, no. I've already discussed it. And I've realized, while you've yet to prove to be the queen at my side, you have proven much impressive in this little chess game. Your faults, whether intentional or simply a happenstance, have been entertaining to no end, and your presence here is somewhat welcome. It's why you're still alive. I wonder why I tolerate you, why it ends up being so easy to fall into the traps of your endless thoughts. You're rambling as though we're close friends, as though we're lovers, even though we've never spoken. It's as though you've dreamed about me for 1,000 years in nothing less than your short time in the world of the living. You are wise and yet foolish, much beyond your means, and you still manage to harbor some measure of enamoring, an alluring presence, an endearing one that makes me feel something. To make a curse, the king of curses, feel something, isn't that a flex all its own, a thing to be admonished, a quality that only you have, and yet a quality that hinges upon your very furthering of that existence? Can you remain as steadfast as you have? Can you keep my attention for an eternity? I wonder, what shall I do with you? What comes next? What will happen? when that patience turns to pleading, when those lips tremble and that body quakes, when everything I do is no more than a ploy of words, of actions that make no sense to your petty little brain, and yet still you look so hopeful, yet still you endlessly admonish my being. That subtle, strange feeling. Is it entertaining? Undoubtedly. Is it correct? No doubt it's not. And yet still, we stammer on as though we're zombies, walking towards the inevitable sunrise, just to disintegrate and fall like the leaves in the autumn. Yet the poetic march forward is not without its plight. You see, we have unfinished business, you and I. We have so much to discuss once you're awake. There is so much that you want to say to me that you haven't yet worded properly. You haven't yet begged for more or less of my words that you seem to hinge upon. That is why you stayed here, isn't it? Obsession. First to stop me, then to understand me, and now, what comes next? Where is it we're going? Admonishment. Obsession. I wonder when it ends. My dear little plaything, you don't know, and neither will I tell you how this story ends, but that is the allure of such a story, that you can't know until you turn the page what happens next. Until you play the end of this dangerous game, it just keeps lulling forward. It keeps going endlessly until it all falls apart. Do you think you'll exist then, to see all your hard effort come to waste, or do you honestly believe I will cherish you back? It is not entirely a pathetic side to you. Such determination has its merit. It has merit in the form of unending fervor that never stops, but endlessly marches forward. You're not taking no for an answer. Your end not allowing itself to persist. Instead of accepting the easy path of being consumed by me, you instead made a path forward. One to continue to be a part of this maddening game of lives and souls, curses and sorcerers, and yet you find a path. You manage to make a wade through the heavy waters, and find a way to keep me watching, my eyes peeled on your every move, because I can't find a better way to spend this eternity. Sure, destruction is fun, but it's finite. You, however, may not be so finite as the humans which you represent. You are interesting, intriguing, and overall futile. And yet I can't seem to see you as anything more, nor anything less than exactly what you've been to me. A distraction, a moment in eternity that never seems to change otherwise. It's interesting, you are not so easily dissuaded, and so calm and peaceful laying there, as though your whole life was purposed for you to end up in my arms, as helpless as a fawn without its mother. And yet twice as impressive in the fact that you smile, how you enjoy yourself in the literal lap of luxury amidst the most danger you could ever face in your life, surrounding you on all sides, threatening to bite at your soul at any moment, to sever you, like the space and time you held dear before finding yourself here. And yet still, you seem to be in heaven while dancing in the pits of hell. Is this what you wanted when you came into my soul realm? Is this how you imagined it? Those many times you must have run through. Never did I'll admit it. You outsmarted me in that way. I didn't think even once there would be someone like you, able to go so far as to make me allow you to do this, to allow you to still breathe after so long, and let alone breathing, to breathe so easy, to rest on my lap. What a cocky little human, and yet so interesting. So interesting that I can't ever seem to put you down. I can't seem to understand why, at this point, after everything, you still trust me. After endless displays of my power and ruthlessness, you still manage to see me as something worth such trust. I don't know what your plan is. In truth, I don't think you have one. But regardless of if you do or do not, I care not for the placities or the frivolous nature of your kind and your kin. I value your madness, your fervent desire to understand, to look into the void and watch as it stares back at you. You could never understand me, and I could never understand you, but in that exasperation, that conundrum that can never be solved, that paradox is what defines me and you, in that we could never, ever hope to understand the other. It is quite simply impossible. You and I will always be at odds, because that is not something you can ever stop. That is not something you can ever escape. Your future is mine, your present is mine, and yet, in some twisted way, I suppose you've stolen from me the will to kill you, instead replaced by the curiosity of what you'll do next. A true entertainer you are. And yet even then, we're bitter enemies, and yet you treat me with such kindness, such tenderness, whenever you do open those eyes. I wonder what you'll see me as next. A hero, a savior, or maybe you'll see me as the devil in cursed form. Regardless, you'll probably stay by my side, no matter what atrocities I commit, and that, by itself, is impressive, don't you think? To think I've found someone somewhat worthy of my time, and yet more unworthy than even a peasant. You're nothing but a whelp, and yet a whelp that seems to mean something to me. How foolish I've become, and it's your fault. I should, by all intents, end you right now, but you know as well as I do. You're far too entertaining for that, and what is a king without a jester? What is a king without a queen? What is a king without some reason to sit upon the throne? And for now, you are that reason. Aren't you proud of it? Aren't you proud that you can be something so incredible as to make me feel? The King of Curses does not so easily, you know. I am not so easily swayed in this way or that. You are an exceptional human, but still you're mortal. It offends me. The idea of the inevitable goodbye to the mortality, and then your soul just floats away or is consumed by me, seems like such a waste. I would rather make you immortal like me, have you stay by my side, but then you'd lose that innocent quality, wouldn't you? A life as cursed doesn't suit you, and maybe the finality of your time here makes you that much more appealing, as though your purpose is undefined, but your passion is as defined as the stars in the sky, shining brightly for no purpose whatsoever. And yet you shine for me, because I say so, and yet because you mean so. In truth, my commands are probably not what you fear the most, nor my wrath, which is vexing to a certain extent, and quite harmful to my reign, and yet it is that indignance that makes you so alluring. You do not fear me the way other mortals do, even though I could destroy you with a snap of my fingers with a mere thought. And yet you remain an entertaining and so enamoring piece of this all too peaceful moment. Peace has never been something that enamored me before. It's almost startling, the agency you have over this moment. By simply laying there, you are making a difference that could save puny human lives. But even then, it probably won't prevent anything. Do you see it now? It's all so futile, all of it. All your efforts in vain, and yet you don't seem to be bothered in the slightest. I think that might be my favorite part about you. You're so lost to what you think I am, to what you think you can do and change in me. But who's really changing who, my darling? Who ends this with an advantage other than me? There is no way for you to win. There is no chance for you to escape, and that alone has its own merits, don't you think? You're stuck in my spider web of what is real and what isn't, of my cursed energy that wraps around you and embraces you like a warm blanket, but could just as easily strangle you. Just like that. You're merely in the palm of my hands in the most refined way possible. Ah, yes. The more I think about it, the more your purpose remains defined. You are to me a fun little toy to play with, but never break. There's a simple reason behind it, though I have no intention to explain it to you. You are mine, and that is simply it. Your purpose defined, your future and everything else will be a mystery until I deem you to know it. You will know in due time your fate that you've chosen. But I enjoy this time that you won't know, that you'll be left wondering why and how, what it actually means to be with me. What do you think? Is it a future you can swallow? One you've chosen all your own, and yet I've made so many decisions for you. It's so interesting seeing you like this, because I can finally see it when you're at your most vulnerable, that I have no desire to arrange something worse than this for you. You have already faced your demons per se and still face them by being here. But the fact that you can rest in such a place is impressive all its own. Your affinity for cursed energy is almost as impressive as your affinity for making me feel, for making me allow this, for making me do anything at all. You're most impressive for a human, and yet even still, I can't help it. Your future should be something interesting, don't you think? A mere end at the end of a sever cut would be such a boring end, such a bland one for someone so lacking in blandness. That would be torment only to myself, and yet you deserve something more fascinating. Your finite end may be denied or may be given to you when the end of your time here comes. But even if it does, I may not be rid of you if my connection to you is strong enough. You may rise again, even if it's against your will. That is because your intentions may not align up with what you truly want. Your desires, you wear them just as fervently as your puny little morals. And that is where you're a perfect candidate for being more than just the jester here. No, you'll be my queen. You'll definitely find it to be a most promising endeavor for you as well. I mean, think about it. Have you ever once thought your life as a human would be so filled with curses? Always fighting, always struggling, and for what at the end of the day? You're lost to it. And yet your future couldn't be more bright. A future in my arms is one that suits you. A future you didn't ask for but begged for. With your eyes, with your sleeping face, and such an innocent one it is. You are the only human I'll ever speak these words to. Be proud, little fool. You finally understood what it meant to be alive. This is the truth of the world that no one sees but those who have seen the best and worst it's had to offer. You are no better than them, and yet you're so much better, aren't you? I could judge you all day long, but even then, would I be doing anything more than judging my past self? No. You are nothing more than a prodigy among all. Someone who's meant to stand at the peak of the mountain and look down upon the others. Whether or not your big heart will let you is the question. That constant internal conflict is so fun to watch between your morals, your intention, and your true nature. They all are at war with each other in such a satisfying way, don't you think? It's all for something more, for this little play, more than words, more than anything. I wish to see you be more honest. Don't you think honesty is key? If you aren't honest, will you ever know what you truly desire? Well, maybe you won't, but everyone else will. And that's what I'm here for, to keep that honesty in frame. And then when the honesty is there, you'll finally understand it. You'll finally understand your place is to belong with me. It is simply your destiny to be here. Destiny is such a fickle thing, isn't it? Everyone curses it when it curses them right back. And yet you've accepted it, you've adapted. You are like a cat curled against a fireplace, so cozy yet so close to its tail, igniting into flames. You're so prone to dancing towards that fire, right at the cusp, living life on the knife's edge, on the blade that could harm you is the one that you kiss, on the lap of your enemy is the one that you lay. It's so much a contradiction. Your existence, as much as your intentions, as much as your draw to always do something more. You're a lost cause in the most distilled and most enamoring way. I enjoy this wondrous failure that you've subjected yourself to because it's so fun, don't you think? I will have my way with your soul, and you will be impunitive to everyone else. As for your innocence, I plan to keep it as such a admirable feature in someone so purely impure, and yet that's where we disagree, isn't it? You wish for me to sully that purity, for you to make your future into something different, for me to tamper with the strings of fate where you've misunderstood me. I don't wish to do that to you, as I think your current iteration is more than adequate enough, at least for now. Perhaps whimsy may take me down another path later, but do you really want to tempt fate like that? To deny it, to kill it? I wonder if that is suitable for your innocent heart, or is that just a facade and you fooled me as well as even fooling yourself? I wonder how dark that soul really is, or how pure, or maybe perfectly neutral. Like a paint stroke on the greatest work of art in all of history, you are as though someone dumping the whole paint can on the canvas and watching it ruin decades of work, hundreds of years undone, and yet your intentions are that of the original artist, to make something a smile, but never quite committing to it. That contradiction, where you can never seem to make sense of your own words or intentions, are just a prime example of why you're here, why you need to be here. I will keep your intentions a secret, as well as your deeper feelings, and you will share with me those dark secrets in the recesses of your heart, the dark innocence that you refuse to accept as real, the back and forth of reality that you can't face or even place. You exist here with me as my plaything, my distraction. And yet, sometimes it feels as though I've played right into your hands by not ending you so soon. Perhaps it's different. The more I think about it, the more I realize your genius and your stupidity. I can't tell which suits you better, which word resounds more with your soul, because I can't decide what you are. You're an anomaly for certain, but beyond that, the words fail to come to me. You are purely you, for better or worse, someone who can never escape that contradiction that you live, of wanting something that you don't care about, of needing something that you don't want. But why? Why are you like this? I question it, even looking at you now, peering into the recesses of your resting soul. You still confuse and confound me in such a way, and yet that confusion, that chaos, is perfect as a companion, as a waste of the many minutes and hours and years until my full resurrection, and even after that. You will remain something of a fixation of mine, as I found some qualities that I wish not to bid farewell. That is why you will remain here with me for the unspecified eternity that we face together, and when time decides to take you away, I may wrestle you back from the clutches of such a cruel concept of time. We'll see how I feel in those years to come, those fleeting moments that you are here, resting away, wasting away. Such a pathetic but fascinating creature, something I can't get enough of, and yet you get on my last nerve in such a way that I ask myself why I haven't ended you yet. How is it you both mean something to me, and I see you as a thorn in my side? It's just beyond logic or reasoning. You simply exist to be such a unique contradiction, don't you? How quaint, and yet how facetious. I can't find the words to describe you, and yet you meander on, walking down this path. Into your dreams you seep, and I find myself hoping that the nightmares are too afraid of me to reach you. Perhaps I see some innocence in you that I once had, and perhaps I had a softer heart than I ever cared to admit, and my hatred and obsession merely took the forefront, and that my existence as a curse was no more than a happenstance of fate, my ambition taking the forefront, devouring my heart in such a pitiful display. Perhaps I envy you in your innocence and your weakness, and also in your passionate absolution that you refuse to allow or elaborate on. You continue even when you know there's no point. You struggle in vain, waiting for fate to give up on its endless attempts to right what you've wronged, and yet you still remain here, existing against all odds, where everything else the world wishes for you not to. It endlessly remains your opponent. And yet I find myself even more intrigued by the fact that you haven't given up. You never give up. That alone makes you special to me. As much as I could end you, and as much as my threats will rain down like hellfire on you and brimstone, even then, I can't bring myself to pull the figurative trigger and end what could be the most fascinating experience of my afterlife. My existence as a curse doesn't devoid me of my previous experiences. It only faceted them in a new way, shaping me. Sure, some may call me cruel, but I'm more of an enigma, something that can never be explained with a simple sentence, but at the same time my heart aches for such innocence. I end it so casually and watch it fade in some sick pleasure of seeing it destroyed. Seeing life flood out of someone's eyes has its own merit, don't you think? And yet all the same, I can't stop this appreciation from presenting itself. This, your rebellion against everything I stand for, makes you that much more appealing. I never have seen someone as stammering as you, as absolutely stunning in your absolute rebellion. It is that rebellion that I wish for you to win. I almost wish to teach you to be stronger so you had a chance in your parade, your crusade, your attempts at making this end in a peaceful manner. As much as it sickens me to even utter such words, your pride, your purpose, yet your contradiction of set purposes in your desire for things not so far off from my own are what make me so intrigued with you. You refuse to give up even when you've given up. It makes no sense when I say it that way, but that's no truer or no more false than it truly is. You don't believe the words you utter, and yet you believe them as fervently as a cultist ready to drink poison for your cause. And yet even then, what does it all mean to you? What is the meaning behind all of those empty words? What is the meaning in fighting against me when you have such feelings harbored, when you want me as much as you need me, as much as you hate me? What better word suits love than accompanied by pure hatred? And yet you lay in the lap of someone you hate after fighting tooth and nail just for an empty victory and a fulfilling loss. You always fall back into your old ways, the truth of what you feel, as obvious as your breath filling your lungs. I can't believe you're still at it. How many times is it that you'll relax in my lap yet swear that you'll take me down, that you'll end me, even if you had the ability to destroy my soul? Would you really do it? Or would you remain sleeping peacefully in my lap? That peaceful acceptance that you yourself see me as something more than just an enemy. That we are only enemies in name and nothing else. In all other ways, I feel as though we're kindred spirits. A curse and a human, a forbidden love and a forbidden example of what we could be, what we should be. What anything we've stood for, it's just ended right then and there. And why? Why did it end that way, do you think? Because there was no end. We just said this was the finish line and this was the end. There was no other truth to it, because you and I continue manically speaking to each other with touch, with soft breaths, as lungs fill with air every time you breathe, as calm as a sheep that's resting in the wolf's lap. And yet you don't fear it, that the fangs could be at your neck at any moment. You trust me, and to a certain extent I trust you. What would you call this relationship, this twisted, maniacal thing we can't ever seem to define? It's just that, isn't it? It's undefinable, what I am to you and what you are to me. Just a facade of what humans or cursors understand, an amalgamation, an abomination, and yet nothing of what we do seems to puzzle the other. We just make sense of it through our kindred hearts that twist and turn, as twisted and maniacal as the worst villain, and yet as innocent as a cute little puppy dog. We can't seem to make sense of it. What are we, really? What is our purpose to be so close, yet so far away? I wonder to this very day what I'm supposed to be doing with you, what I'm supposed to say with you, if I should just put you out of your misery, or if that would just put me shouldering that said misery. And I'm not that kind to relieve you of that. You have a duty just like I do. You have to remain true to those words, the contradiction of which you live every single day. And instead, I will keep you in my arms, safe or in danger, whichever way you see it. The wolf taking care of the sheep, just as the sheep unwittingly takes care of the wolf. Isn't it poetic justice that we don't need such constraints of hatred or love in order for our connection to have as much validity as the most impartial of parties, as the most deep in love or hate? We are sworn enemies and lovers wrapped into one, and yet I wonder what that makes us at the end of the day, because the neutrality that it could mean never finds us. It's always a flare of passionate emotions, passionate feelings between us that never seem to stop springing forth like a well that never ends. Just like the cursed energy that binds us by this twisted little contract we have. One that I could break at any moment, but I haven't, because you deserve better than that. If you're going to have an end and more, if I'm going to end you, it should be a grandiose one. You deserve that after so much entertainment, so much of a purpose that you've given, so much of a place that you have to me, so much of a place that you deserve to feel and be and live. I seek it all. No resolution, no resolute decision-making, only an endless cycle of us, back and forth with teeth at each other's throats. That's what true romance is, isn't it? That's what our relationship amounts to. If we don't shed blood, is it really love? Yet if we don't have these tender moments all the same, it wouldn't feel like us that day. It would feel like doppelgangers existing to mimic us in such a crude and unfamiliar fashion. And yet here we are, once again, wrapped in the stance of death. A poetic dispute that will never have its resolution until the day we stop breathing. But will that day ever come, or is this an eternal dispute? Will you ever be the fold forevermore? That I fight, that I clash, that I love, that I hate. I wish for you to remain as that, as change is something I do not favor. It is something so boring and mundane that if you were to die, I think I would hate you more. I think I would cry for you out of sheer boredom, sheer angst that I could never see you futilely trying to kill me again. I would miss it. I would miss you in some way that I can't put into words. You have a purpose, and I have a place. Together, we make the throne have a reason. And even as you rest atop my lap, as soundly as a baby sleeps in their mother's arms, I remain looking at you with something I can't put into words. Whether I care or not is up to interpretation, but regardless of how I feel, the point is that I do. You have made me feel, and impressively, you have been made to feel too, from your sworn enemy, and yet you have no shame on the subject. You are every bit as determined in your wrongness as you were from the start. Pathetic, and yet admirable beyond any years or wisdom or intelligence. Your passion has reached me. Rejoice, my little whelp, as you have made me feel something, and you are purposed to the world of which the King of Curses will design. And this ordeal I shall ordain you as my very own. From now until forever, until death attempts to part us, and I wrench you back from its claws only to remain in my lap as you are now, sleeping soundly. Till life draws its last, I will have you. This mixture of hate and love, this passionate feeling indescribable from anything else, you will witness it until the sun burns its last, until the stars blot out the sky in darkness, and until the world is mine to command. You can try and stop me, and you can fail so miserably, in a way that keeps me entertained, in a way that I'll never grow tired of. And that is your purpose now, whelp. Now, until I decide otherwise.